Okay, so we already defined these terms yesterday, but just again, um, anything that's a bisector is going to cut a line in half. In grade 10, we're usually going to focus more on perpendicular bisector, which means that the line is perpendicular to the line segment and cuts it in half. And then the median is just going to cut the line in half. So part of what we did on that legal sheet together was say, is a median perpendicular? Is this perpendicular? No. Whereas this is, obviously. So that affects the kind of slope we can use, okay? Okay, so these questions aren't asking you to specify whether it's median or perpendicular bisector. You just have to find the equation of the line. So the general form, we're going to use that again. So now, yes, we do need the equation of the line, but you get that formula, right? So this time we're given what happens when you have a line that's parallel and what happens when you have a line that's perpendicular, which is a concept from grade 9, but we did review it as well. So if it's parallel, what's the slope going to be? Yep. And we are given P and Q. And you just plug it in. Okay, I chose a negative x value on purpose because then it's negative negative inside the brackets. Okay, that's really the only trick, so to speak, to this. Okay. So then distribute. Yes. Yes. Okay, so it says perpendicular to 10y equals negative 5x plus 2 and has the same y-intercept. So we can do something about with the perpendicular part, except this equation is not in y equals mx plus b form. So there's a little bit extra work here. Okay, so you have to divide by 10, divide by 10, divide by 10. We should reduce. Okay, so it says perpendicular to this line, right? So that means that, so the slope of this line is 1 over 2. And similar to what you would have done in grade 9, leave it as a fraction, because now when we do perpendicular, or if you like perp, or you can write the whole word, yeah, whatever you want, okay? You flip and change the sign. So now it's going to be positive, and it's going to be 2. Or 2 over 1. It's fine too, same thing. Okay? Now we have the slope. So some of the questions before said you would be given a point and then you would have to solve. But this one's even easier because we're doing y equals mx plus b. What's b? Yes, okay, but in general, what's b? Good. So if they have the y-intercept, Jackson, what are we going to put here? Yes, 12. Here, this is 12. It's got the same y-intercept. Okay, so if you are a procedure kind of person, then we just did questions yesterday. We didn't really write a procedure, okay? So this will help you when you go to do the in-class assignment. So in order to find an equation of the line, we need slope and we need a point, right? So P and Q and M. So when you have the perpendicular bisector, you're going to calculate the slope of the line segment. Philip, write this down. You need this later. So once you have the slope of the one line, if you're doing perpendicular, I'm gonna add air quotes here. You're calculating, but really all you have to do is the negative reciprocal, right? So that's not really a calculation. Or if you like flip and change the sign, invert and change the sign, whatever. And this was unique from the median, okay? So in the median, we could just do the slope of the median to the, or the midpoint to the point you're given. Here, we had to do the perpendicular, okay? So then, in both median and bisector, they cut the line segment right in half. Both of them, you need the midpoint. And then you're going to use this. So we're going to use the slope, which is, we're going to use the negative reciprocal one. So I'm going to highlight both those the same color. And then you're going to use, I'll use pink. Then you're going to use the midpoint. as P and Q. Okay? Because we're no longer looking at the line segment anymore. Now we want the perpendicular bisector, and the only point we know is the midpoint where it cuts the line in half. Okay? So that's your only choice. So you will have to graph the line, or the median one's a triangle, I think. I forget if this is just a line, or a triangle. Doesn't matter. So find the equation of the perpendicular bisector of the line segment. You're going to get, this says draw a picture to help you. You're going to get marks for the picture, okay, the graph. So in the in-class assignment, you'll want to do it for sure. So graph the line if you want first. If it's a terrible photocopy, each line is one, counts as one. It's up to you if you're confident in your graphing skills, but it may bug you if you don't make the line perfect. So I'm going to wait until we calculate the midpoint in order to draw my perpendicular bisector. Okay. So whether you do slope first or you do midpoint first, it actually doesn't matter. I'll just follow these. Okay. So I'm going to do slope first. Phil, can you turn that off? I know, but can you turn it off? I can hear it. Can you turn it off? Thank you. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to leave it because step number 2 is the perp. We need the perpendicular slope. So usually leaving it as a fraction is a little bit more obvious. Okay, so again, change the sign. I'll write it as 2/1 to emphasize the flipping, but you could just write 2. Okay, we need the midpoint. Okay, so now you can put your midpoint there. Call it M if you want, capital M. Once we do the equation of a line, we're going to have the y-intercept. So if you really want to know where it crosses, like if you really want to wait to do, so it's perfectly 90 degrees, you can. If you do a pretty good job, that'll count. Okay. Now, if you do something like this, that's obviously not 90 degrees, but if it's pretty good, I'll give you marks for it. Okay. Sorry, we're going to have to squish. So step 4, now we use the slope and the midpoint and find the line. So when you do this, if you have to graph it even in the in-class assignment, it should be nice, okay? We had a fraction, but then we changed the fraction, right? Okay? I'm not going to write this out just so I don't have enough room. And the only point we can use, because our perpendicular bisector is going to go this way, again, the only one you can use is the midpoint. So midpoint, PQ. Okay? I'll even write it down, what I use there. Pink, PQ. So the picture sort of helps, because now if we're going to draw the perpendicular bisector, you can see that C and D are not on that line. I'm going to skip a step here. So I didn't show the changing this to +1. I only showed the distributing. Okay? So now we know the y-intercept. So when you go to draw your perpendicular bisector, now you know that it's going to go through here. It can go this way too. Doesn't matter. So make sure, if it asks you to draw it, make sure you clearly mark it, like putting the perpendicular sign here. It's pretty good. If you label C and D, I'll know what you're doing. Okay, and the other one we did was median. Okay, so again, if you're a procedure kind of person, we'll write out the procedure. Okay, so we have for median, now median implies middle, right? So we need the midpoint. I'm going to write about a triangle here. Okay. So then we talk about the side the median will touch. It's the side of the triangle. Which means there's 3 possible line segments. Okay, so just make sure you read the question carefully, because we're going to calculate the slope, which you need 2 points. So you have to be given a vertex of the triangle, right? One of the points that you're going to from. and the midpoint. I don't know why this says it again, but that's okay. This is the slope of the median. So this time, the picture is very important and will help you visualize it. And then we're going to use the slope and end point. So this time we have two that we can use for our P and Q. Let me just see what colors I did over here, the highlights. Oops. Slope was yellow. Okay, so essentially the same thing, except there are a little bit, not tricks to it, but things to remember. Okay, so that's why I chose to take this chunk out of the test, and then you can use your notes to help you. Okay? All right, so draw the triangle. I recommend that you label the vertices as well, A, B, C, or whatever the letters are. And this time, before you do the work, it tells you to do from A to BC. So if you want, do the midpoint and then you'll know where to go to, and then you can draw your picture in. So the midpoint of BC, so you're finding the midpoint of the line it's going to go to. Midpoint, it doesn't matter if because you're adding, which is x1 and x2 really. So now use midpoint and whatever vertex it says. So it says to go from A, yes. Interesting. Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I was like, wait, what? This is okay, so BC should be 2-1. Draw the median in. And maybe this might, when you draw the line in, then this might help you. You know what points you're going to use. You're going to use A and you're going to use M. So A is -7, -2. M is 2, 1. So it doesn't really matter. Call this x1, y1, x2, y2. Okay, so we have the slope. That's the slope that we're going to use. We don't have to, it's not this, and when you draw the picture, this line is obviously not perpendicular. Okay, and now we can find the line. So we can use A, we can use M, it doesn't matter. Like I said, lots of times students, for whatever reason, sometimes they don't trust themselves. Sometimes they want to use midpoint because they just calculated it. It really doesn't matter, okay? A has negative numbers. Maybe you don't like that. So I'll use the midpoint. So it's up to you. Now this is obviously going to give us decimals. So you can change it into, it's going to give us fractions and you'll have to add and subtract fractions. You can change it into decimals. So I'll do this one like that. Okay, I'm going to make an estimate. It's a repeating decimal. Yes. If you would prefer an even shorter way, on this little sheet, we'll fill in the steps here too. So you'll have lots of places. I don't want you to start right away if you've done none of this homework, because again, you can't say to me, how do I do this? How do I do this? How do I do this? The homework is the time when you can ask questions like that, okay? Okay, we don't need, you guys have a nice big spot. We didn't do altitude, so you don't need any of this, okay? So I even made it easier. We cut something out, no altitude. So you guys don't even have that spot, okay? You have perpendicular bisector, which is this, and you have median, which is this, okay? On this. On the little summary cheat sheet, I'll call it, okay? You're going to use your notes, yes. So if you would like a streamlined way to find this information, then fill this out. No altitude, no. Oh no, I'm going to give you a sheet, yeah, when you're ready to go.